Raise your hand if you ever were forced to read a book in high school that made you want to pull your hair out.
Or if you ever read one that was so boring it made you faceplant into the book.
We've all had stories like that, and today we're here to talk about them. We're going to talk about the books we loved, the books we loathed, and how that compares to what they're reading now.
Espresso Shots and Epic Plots is going back to school to find out what they're reading now and if the list has gotten any better over the years.
I'm Genevieve.
And I'm her mom, Diana.
Grab your favorite beverage
and join us to talk about books.
So, back in our day, but no, really, back in your day, what was a book that you had to read in school that you liked? Let's start with the good ones.
Oh, well, the ones that I had to read in school were not ones that I liked. First off, let me say I graduated in 1979.
High school, right?
High school,
okay.
With a class of about almost 300, I think, maybe 350. So not a very big high school. And it was
a public school.
It was a public school in a very nice town. I grew up in a very upper crust town, but the levies kept failing. So the school was doing really, really poorly. I had classes with no desks. We had to reuse papers that were put through the mimeograph, so the purple ink, it was... But anyway, I do remember one of the books that was going around. I don't believe it was required reading, but it was Sybil by Flora Retta Schreiber. And at the time, it was called schizophrenia, but now it's called dissociative disorder.
DID.
DID.
Schizophrenia is still a diagnosis.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the time, I believe that it was written that this was a book about a schizophrenic woman.
Got it.
She had a multitude of personalities. It was like beyond, there was the 3 Faces of Eve that had she had 3 personalities, and Sybil had, it was like every time you turn the page, there was a whole new personality. And some of them were babies, young toddlers, some of them were boys.
Was it was it supposed to be a fictional account, or was it a memoir?
It was a true account. It was a true story. Written by, I believe, her
Schreiber.
Doctor. Yeah, I believe it was her doctor.
Okay.
And of course, as it came out, her mother also suffered probably from schizophrenia and really put this child through the ringer. And yeah, it was a sad story.
So you voluntarily read that in high school?
Yeah, it was one of those books that was going around that we all, like to
read and talk about.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about you?
Yeah, mine was The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, which I know apparently every is it serial killer who's read?
Serial killers.
Or assassin or something like that. And I guess I should all lay the same context. So I went to private school because public school would have been my public school would have been way worse than your public school. And I graduated in 2001. My class was about 150. Does that sound right? Or 250?
I was thinking it was a little bit bigger.
Okay, so maybe it was 200. We'll call it 200. Small. It was still a small school.
How many classrooms did you have?
I don't know.
It was for your home room. How many?
I couldn't even tell you. No, there's no way I could tell. My school's, it was a fairly large size. Well, I don't know. Out of context, I only ever went to private school, so I don't really know what a big school would look like.
My bad. I just sent her to private schools.
I was not underfunded. We definitely had desks and paper but because it was a private school, we weren't beholden to the same rules and restrictions, but it was a religious private school. It was a Catholic school, so I'm sure they had their own certain things you could or couldn't read. But I would say that didn't really, I was reading things that my friends in public school weren't reading, so it didn't. They didn't ban anything or shun anything. Yeah. So anyway, The Catcher in the Rye, I remember really enjoying it in high school, and then I did actually read it again as an adult when I was in college, because that's one of those things that you don't know. If I read it again when I was older,
would you get it the same?
Right, and I do remember liking it again as a college student, but I wonder now that I'm an adult, because I know a lot of people say Holden Caulfield is annoying and he's kind of whiny. Mm-hmm. And when you are like an annoying, whiny teenager, mm-hmm. So I wonder if as an adult, it is something that I've been wanting to pick up.
Interesting, yeah.
So, but how about a bad one that you had to read?
Well, ones that stand out to me that they had us read, one was called The Pigman, and the other one was The Outsiders.
Which is funny because that's what my current 7th graders, like that's one of their requirements.
Yes, 7th grade.
Yeah, but they love it. Like this is my 2nd year teaching. This is actually my 3rd year teaching 7th grade. And the past 2 years, they get really into it and go around and start calling each other Pony Boy and
Dallas.
Yeah, and they love it. So it's funny.
I found it an odd choice, maybe because we were given it so late in our teenage years that it was maybe beyond us. But I think what bothered me about it is, they're teaching us to all behave and think for ourselves, and instead then they turn around and give us a book that's about a rural gang that's going around and fighting each other, and somebody ends up dying.
But maybe that was the point. Maybe this is what happens if you don't.
Well, I don't know. I don't remember it being very in depth, because at the time the school did provide us with the books. They handed us the books. We didn't have to go buy them on our own, if I remember right. Because I know there was a time, like with you, I think we had to go find the books that were required for you.
Yeah, that sounds right. I do know that when I worked at the bookstore, we would have by school, we would have the list behind it. So I don't remember what we did at my high school.
I just really did not feel like it was a classic.
Now, did you know that S.E. Hinton was a teenager when she wrote it?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so maybe that explains.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she wrote it
the genre of YA, I don't think that was really clearly defined like it is now. Yeah. Probably didn't have as many authors, but I do remember like when I went off to college afterwards, and my university was broadening, and people were sitting around having intellectual thoughts about all of the the classics, and Ray Bradbury and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And
Adams, I think.
Yeah, Adams. And I just felt like I am so far behind because they didn't have us reading any of what was called the classics.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So I would say, if they're reading it in middle school and you read it in high school, that probably is a bit of a
hit at the wrong time, maybe.
So.
And the Pigman, I mean, now I bet you that everything in that book would have been, you don't call people names like that, and I remember very little about it other than the book was about the same size. It was a skinny little, what you call a novella, probably.
Probably, yeah.
What did they have you read? What did my hard-earned money go towards?
The one that I didn't like, I hate saying this, that makes me sound like a terrible human being. Well, so I used to be a very slow reader. And so, no, that was never required reading, at least not in high school. So I was a really slow reader before, and you have to read these books in like this specific amount of time. So I would legitimately just not be able to read them fast enough. I had the same issue when I did my standardized tests. Like I couldn't read the paragraph fast enough to answer the questions. Anyway, but the one that got me, the one that stands out, not so much that it was bad per se, but it was The Color Purple by Alice Walker.
Oh, I love that book.
I know. And I'm sure if I read it now, it's like traumatizing to read. I don't like reading books where terrible things happen to people. But I do know I had to write a paper on it, and I didn't have time to finish the book, so I watched the movie. I'm really sorry, sophomore English teacher, if you're watching this, but I wrote the paper based on the movie, which does not end the same way as the book. So I was totally caught. There was like, she left a note on it that said, it was like, the movie ends different than the book. And I had read the book, but then I ran out of time. And so I had to watch the movie. So there was something about that didn't engage me enough to make me keep reading it and finish it. So
I had, my parents have a library in their house, and I had the advantage of having Reader's Digest condensed books that, I mean, my parents literally have shelves of these. There would be 6 books in a volume.
Okay.
Of a book that, an average size book about that thick.
Was it like the early version of Spark Notes and Cliff Notes?
Sort of, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it was literally the words in the book, but a lot of the fluff was.
So it was like the abridged version.
Yeah,
of them.
yeah.
Okay.
An abridged version would be a good.
That's actually a perfect transition into a book that surprised me that was assigned reading, The Count of Monte Cristo. And
that's a long
when I read it, I loved it, and I'm pretty sure in school it was like a 300 or 400 page book, which at that point in reading, most of them had been these skinny little books.
Right.
And so I remember reading it, loving it, enjoying it, and then finding out later in life that we had read the abridged version. And so last year I tackled the unabridged version, and it's interesting because they did a good job abridging it so that you didn't feel like you missed.
Get lost.
Yeah, and so I was curious to see if this was going to be full of fluff, but it still wasn't. It really went into the story. Obviously, that was decades later, so I can't compare the abridged versus the unabridged one. But that was one that surprised me because I love books where by the time you get to the end, you wonder how the author tied everything together the way they did. Like, that's what I like about the Harry Potter books. I know we all have our opinions about J.K. Rowling, but there's things that come from the first books that are insignificant that later on are really important, and Dumas did that in The Count of Monte Cristo. So that was one that was surprising for me.
It's funny you talk about book sizes, because one of the surprising books that I came across, I don't believe it was required reading as well, but I'm still glad I read it, was The Little Prince. In fact, I've read it a couple of times. Also a very skinny, teeny tiny book. Tells the story of a little boy who is in outer space, and he's on his own planet. It's a very, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a lot of metaphors and analogies, and it's a sort of not a self-help book, but a thinker. It's a thinker.
It's a thinker.
It reads sort of like a child's book, and I think you could probably read it to a child and they would enjoy it, but there's a lot in there. Oh, I forgot about Jonathan Livingston Seagull. That was another very popular book that I read. I don't think it was required reading. It was a book written about a seagull who just wanted to fly higher and higher than everybody else, but it was more of a life lessons kind of thinker book.
Is it like a Psalm for the Wild built?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, you think you're reading this story, but there's really a lot more behind it. It was very, very retro. I mean, 70s. Groovy, hippie.
I've never heard of that one, actually. So.
Really? That's interesting. I wonder whatever happened to that book.
All right. Are there books that you know are classics or that you've heard that kids read that you never read, that were like Hall of Fame that you never read?
Well, there were tons of them. And back in about 2014, I had a 45-minute drive to the office. And so that's when I really started hitting the audiobooks. And at the time, you could get classics for free. So I just started going through them all. Some of them that I never did read, though, still to this day. One of them's The Great Gatsby. Never read that.
See, I read that, and that's one of those books I'm glad I read in school because we did that analysis, and I think if I would have read it without that, I would have just been like, who cares?
So there's more to it, I know, because I really...
Well, at least according to my teacher, there's more to it. And however he got me to make those connections, it stuck with me. So
there probably is. I mean, it's funny. My mom always talks about, why is this a classic? I mean, she has no love for Ernest Hemingway. And what's the newest classic now? I wonder.
What defines something as a classic?
Because some of this stuff is just really aged. And how can you call this a classic? Now, I'm no English professor or degreed English master, and maybe there is a lot more behind each one of these classics, but I skipped a lot, but I just recently went and listened to a lot of them.
There's definitely some that I mean, there's tons that I didn't read. and I don't really have any interest in reading them. Like 1984, Animal Farm, I didn't read those.
Oh, Animal Farm's nice.
Yeah,
That's
is
a
okay,
good
so I
one.
should try that one?
Oh,
Okay.
definitely. Yeah.
Okay. And actually one they read in 8th grade at my school now is Eli Wiesel's Night, which is a Holocaust book. It's a short one, but obviously like very heavy. That is one that I've contemplated picking up because, you know, I feel like it's been around, it's been assigned reading for a long time, and so I'm sure it has some really good,
Yeah.
you know,
Did you do the Diary
historical-
of Anne Frank?
I feel like I did read.
I think you did.
Yeah, I know I read, there was a similar book that came out when I was either in middle school or young high school that was similar to Diary of an Anne Frank, but it was a girl in Kosovo. And so it was her story, but
very
about
similar,
Kosovo,
yeah.
which was a much more recent experience. And I can't remember what the name of that book is. Fahrenheit 451, did you read that one? Yeah, that's... And
I have not read that
yeah,
one.
I feel like I should because it's about burning books,
People
but
always talk about these, and
I got too many other books I want to read though.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm kind of to the point where if I'm not going to be able to sit down and have it analyzed and told, then I would rather read for my entertainment.
Maybe we should do a classics buddy read.
That wouldn't be bad. Well, Jane Austen is, all of hers are considered classics, aren't they?
Yeah.
Mom's always trying to get us
To read
them.
Persuasion,
Yeah,
so we could do a buddy read of that one.
Okay,
So-
maybe that'll be our next buddy read.
Or winter buddy read.
Our winter buddy read.
When you did your foray into reading classics, would you say that that was a positive experience for you?
Yeah, it was. There were not very many of them that I DNF'd or just couldn't get into. I will say that. They didn't always have a good narrator. So
Okay,
that,
it plays a key role.
So yeah, the narrators sometimes were not always the best with those.
That I do see they re-put out classics all the time with different narrators.
I was doing
so-
whatever freebie
Yeah.
I could get off of Audible. I think it was at the
Okay,
time. I don't
yeah.
think Audible does a freebie anymore.
No, they
but
do. They have, yeah. You
Okay.
can get a lot of the classics
Or it
on
might
there.
have been Libby, I don't know. But yeah, I would listen to them on my way to work, and yeah, I enjoyed them. I bounced all over the place. I didn't have any
Rhyme or reason.
yeah, not that I remember. I might have really liked Jane Austen, so I read the next couple of hers, but I'm glad I did, but there's still tons more that I probably should.
Yeah. So I can tell you a little bit about what they're reading now. So I've talked about the ones that we have read that they still read. Interestingly enough, I found this article that said that over the past couple decades, the top 10, 20 books that are assigned have not really changed over the years. To Kill a Mockingbird is still on the list. Did you read To Kill a Mockingbird?
Some point in my life I did.
Yeah. Lord of the Flies is still required reading.
Don't quite remember if I did read
Okay,
that
I know
one.
I read
I know
that
what
one.
it's about.
Yeah. Great Gatsby, The Crucible. I remember reading The Crucible. So all of these still appear in the top 10 lists. So 6 of the top 10 are like John Steinbeck of Mice and Men, which I was probably assigned to read. I couldn't tell you a single thing about it though. Is that the one with Lenny and The Rock?
Yeah, I believe so.
That's what I remember about it. A lot of Shakespeare is still assigned reading. Notice how they're all men. I think that's the other thing, which I know is a whole other tangent that we could go on.
We could.
But that's why I don't gravitate to classics. But I do like the idea of reading like Jane Eyre or Daphne du Maurier or something.
I've got an idea what we're going to do for our TBR, for the winter TBR game.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
we're going to do female classics.
Okay, I like that. We'll see how many. Maybe it'll be a sad excuse for what you come up with. The list will only be this long.
Yeah.
So basically, over the past couple decades, a lot of it hasn't changed, which I know might be not surprising, but angering maybe. But I can tell you from the teacher perspective, new teachers, it is much easier to, when you walk into a classroom, you're not given anything. And so you can find curriculum for these classics. So it's a lot easier and less scary as a new teacher to go with
to something
that's
already
already there, to at least start. And then as you know, as politics have changed and as school policies and funding has changed, there is when teachers try to introduce new works into it, they get pushback either from administration or from parents. And some teachers do fight the fight and stick with it, but a lot of times they're just told they can't.
That's just sad.
And they revert back. But in general, in public schools at least, there is a shift towards not even reading full books to reading short texts and excerpts, because that's the way the tests are written. And so analyzing a text or an excerpt is preparing you to take a test.
Well, that's not what a book is doing.
No, that's why they read excerpts and text instead of full book. But there have been some new ones that have been introduced. So The Hate You Give, which I've never read, but that's
interesting.
Yeah, which is also a movie. The Hunger Games, which
Like those. Those are good ones.
and then The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and that has some really good curriculum. I used to actually teach a class aligned
with your
that.
biology. Didn't you always
exactly.
have them read that anyway?
Yeah, I did that along with the social studies teacher. Our 7th graders read a young reader's edition of Trevor Noah's Born a Crime.
That's amazing.
Did you read that?
I have not.
Okay.
I want to though, but I watched a lot of
his work and stuff.
I know what that means.
And then one of my favorite ones to talk about, our 6th graders actually read The Insignificant Life of a Cactus, which is about a girl that was born with no arms. And so she's I believe she's moving across the state, and she sees a cactus and she starts to see herself like a cactus because she is, she's insignificant. Anyway, so there are some teachers that have really developed some really good curriculum and tried to bring in some varying viewpoints and challenging thoughts. So we want to know, what is one of the required reading books that you'll never forget, or, for better or worse, for whatever reason you won't forget it, or what are some required reading classics that you think we should read?
Yeah. So this is just a reminder to you to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this little discussion that we had, and join us next time.
Happy reading.
You don't want to pour that into your mug?
That's what I'm going to do. It's vodka. No, I forgot to say my name.
I believe it's a book that's with the band. Back in about...
Sorry, there was a
That's
little...
all right, I saw it. I was ignoring it.
I'm sorry. I didn't want you to eat it.
I didn't want you to film you going like this in front of your face.
Sorry.